A single shot from a rooftop. A handwritten note tucked under a computer keyboard.
And a chain of text messages that, depending on who you ask, is either a slam dunk confession or a badly written piece of fiction.
Right. It sounds like the plot of a political thriller. But in the case we're looking at today, finding the evidence was, the easy part.
The hard part is figuring out if any of it is real.
Exactly. We are talking about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And for anyone who might not follow the political circuit that closely, we really need to set the stakes here. Kirk isn't just a pundit.
No, not at all. He's a massive figure in the modern conservative movement. Founder of Turning Point USA, a huge activist, and, he's been a lightning rod for controversy for years.
And on September 10th, he was fatally shot at Utah Valley University.
Right. And in a case like this, a really high-profile case,
Right.
You expect a long, drawn-out manhunt. But here, the police moved incredibly fast.
Incredibly. They arrested a 22-year-old former student named Tyler Robinson. And on paper, this guy is a ghost. Quiet, 4.0 GPA, spent most of his life on his computer.
And prosecutors say he made a 160-yard shot, hid the rifle, and then he texted his roommate.
And this is it. This is the smoking gun that everyone is fighting about. The prosecution released the transcript of texts between Robinson and his roommate, Lance Twiggs. And honestly, when I first read them, I got chills.
It seems definitive.
It did. But then I went online.
And the internet had a very, very different reaction.
Yeah, to put it mildly, I'm seeing threads on Reddit, deep analyses on X. People are shouting fake. They're saying the text feels scripted.
Like bad dialogue in a police procedural.
Exactly. So it's become this battle over reality. We're not just looking at a murder investigation today. We're looking at a crisis of trust.
Yeah, we have to unpack why thousands of people think the FBI might be planting evidence, why a meme about, of all things, furry speak might be the key to the defense.
And this truly bizarre doppelganger theory that Robinson himself seems to believe.
It's a lot.
It is. So let's start with the texts themselves. Before we get into the conspiracies, we have to look at what the prosecution claims happened. Can you set the scene for us?
Okay, so it's right after the shooting.
Right.
Robinson is gone. He's not at their apartment. He sends a text to his roommate, Lance, and gives him a very specific instruction.
Which is?
Look under my keyboard.
Wow. That's classic spy novel stuff right there. And Lance looks, and he finds a note.
A handwritten note. It reads, quote, I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it.
That is explicit. There's no ambiguity there at all.
None. And the roommate, Lance, obviously panics. He texts back a string of question marks, basically saying, you're joking, right? Please tell me you're joking. You weren't the one who did it, right?
And this is the moment. This is where Robinson could have just said, no, I'm messing with you. Denied it.
But he doesn't. He replies, I'm sorry. He confirms it instantly. But then, and this is where the skeptics really start to raise their eyebrows, he starts explaining everything.
But what do you mean everything?
He details his escape route. He mentions he's stuck in Orem. He says the police grabbed some crazy old dude by mistake.
Yeah.
He even talks about the weapon.
He tells him where the gun is in a text.
Yep. Says he hid the rifle in a bush, wrapped in a towel. He explicitly texts, quote, I worry about Prince. Didn't have the ability or time to bring it with.
See, it's helpful. It's almost too helpful. If I'm a prosecutor, I am loving this guy. He's giving me the weapon, the motive, the admission of guilt, all time-stamped.
It's like he's filling out a form for his own conviction. It is the perfect confession.
And that's the problem.
That is exactly the problem. Because when things look this perfect in a case this politically charged, people start asking questions.
Okay, let's get into the weeds here. Because too perfect is just a feeling, right? I want to know what the actual evidence is that these texts might be fake. Because I saw people tearing apart the specific words he used.
It really comes down to linguistics.
Yeah.
Or what linguists call register. Every social group has a way of speaking. Gen Z gamers have a very specific vocabulary.
Right.
Police officers and federal agents have a completely different one. The theory, and this is all over the Change My View threads, is that the person writing these texts sounds like a cop trying to sound like a kid.
The hello fellow kids meme, but for a murder confession?
Precisely. Skeptics are calling it cop speak. For example, look at the nouns he uses. Robinson uses words like squad car, vehicle, automobile, and sweep.
Vehicle? Yeah, I see that. If I'm texting my roommate in a total panic because I just did something horrible, I'm saying car. I'm saying I need to get to my car. Who says I need to get to my vehicle?
A police officer writing a report says vehicle. A civilian says car. Robinson also writes about his drop point.
Which is very tactical jargon.
It is. It implies a level of operational planning that just sounds professional.
It does feel stiff. You know, I had planned to grab my rifle for my drop point. It reads like an after-action report, not a desperate text to your partner.
And that's the core of their argument. The skeptics believe this is a slip-up. They think an agent wrote this script and accidentally let their professional training bleed into the dialogue.
That it's a boomer or a Fed trying to sound like a Zoomer and just failing.
But wait, I have to play devil's advocate here. Because we know this kid wasn't just, scrolling TikTok. He was a gamer. A heavy gamer.
Right, he played shooters, Call of Duty, tactical sims, that sort of thing.
And that is the counterargument, and it's a strong one. If you spend 5,000 hours in a tactical shooter lobby, terms like drop point, sweep, and squad car might just become part of your natural vocabulary.
So when you're stressed, you revert to your training, even if that training is digital.
Exactly. He's in a high-stakes situation, his adrenaline is through the roof, so his brain switches to tactical mode. The language might not be evidence of a conspiracy.
It might just be evidence of how deeply immersed he was in that world.
Yeah, it might just be a weird kid who treats real life like a level in a video game.
Okay, I can buy that. I've heard gamers talk, and it can sound like a totally different language. But then we have the UWU controversy.
Oh, yes. You have to explain this to me like I'm 5 because I saw people losing their minds over this on Twitter. And I felt like I was losing my mind trying to follow it.
This is the glitch in the matrix for the internet sleuths. This is the detail they think blows the whole case wide open. So Robinson apparently engraved messages on the bullets he used.
Which is already deeply disturbing behavior.
Very. And in the text, he mentions this to his roommate. He says, "The fest messages are mostly a big meme. If I see notices bulge ooh on Fox News, I might have a stroke."
Notices bulge UWU. Okay, I know OU is an emoji face. The cutesy one with the closed eyes, right?
Right. But here's the problem. The specific meme he's referencing, which comes from furry subculture and roleplay chat, traditionally uses the emoticon owo.
With O's.
With O's for eyes, like wide, surprised eyes. The phrase is, notices bulge owo. It's supposed to signify surprise. Okay, so he used UW instead of owo. He used a U instead of an O.
And UWU with the U's implies closed, happy, cutesy eyes. In the deep lore of internet culture, these are two very different things.
So the whole argument is that he quoted his own meme wrong.
Exactly. Skeptics are asking, would a guy who is so obsessed with this specific slice of internet culture that he literally engraved it onto a bullet, would he misspell it in a text?
Or
could a 50-year-old FBI agent look up a list of Gen Z slang, pick the wrong emoji, and type it into the script?
it seems so incredibly minor. We're talking about one letter. Is this really what people are hanging their hats on?
In the real world, it's a typo. But in the world of online radicalization, it's a shibboleth. It's a password he failed. To that online community, that single error proves the person writing the text isn't one of them. It signals inauthenticity.
That is just fascinating. We're analyzing memes to determine guilt in a capital murder case.
And that distrust isn't coming from nowhere. We have to look at what people are calling the checklist theory.
A checklist theory.
Yeah, look at what Robinson provides in those texts again. He admits guilt. He totally clears his roommate of any involvement. He gives the location of the weapon.
He explains the motive.
He mentions his grandfather's rifle. It's like he's handing the prosecution everything they need on a silver platter.
Here is everything you need to convict me and leave my roommate alone.
Precisely. Skeptics argue it's just too convenient. Why would a guy who planned an assassination, who wore gloves, who hid the weapon, why would he then create a perfect digital paper trail confessing to everything, minutes after?
Unless he wanted to be caught. Or he really, really wanted to protect someone.
And that brings us to the roommate, Lance Twiggs.
Right. This is a crucial piece of the puzzle. Lance Twiggs is not just Robinson's roommate, but also his romantic partner. And from what I understand, Lance is a transgender individual transitioning from male to female.
And the background here is just tragic in its own right. Twiggs comes from a conservative Mormon family, was reportedly kicked out at 18, and struggled with really severe isolation and gaming addiction. Sources say he and Robinson were just living in this very insular online world.
And there were all those rumors flying around that Twiggs was in witness protection. People were calling him a ghost.
Those rumors were intense. But recent reporting has clarified that while he was under federal protection for a short time because of death threats, he's now just laying low out of state. He's not in the program. He's just hiding from the public eye.
And politically, this is just a powder keg. You have President Trump and right-wing media pointing to the radical left. They see Twiggs' identity and Robinson's attack on Kirk as, proof of violent leftist extremism.
But the text messages, if they're real, tell a very different story about their relationship. Robinson is incredibly protective in that chat. He writes, "You are all I worry about, love." He tells Twiggs to delete the messages, to get a lawyer, to stay silent.
It reads like a goodbye.
It does. It reads like someone who knows they are going down and is desperately trying to shield the person they love. The prosecution argues this proves Robinson acted alone.
But the defense is pointing to other things.
Well, yeah, the defense is pointing out conflicts of interest. Apparently, a prosecutor's child was a witness to the shooting.
Oh, wow.
And on the other side, you have figures like Kash Patel and a large part of the public who just view the FBI with extreme suspicion. They fear that Twiggs might have been a handler or an informant, or that this is all a setup.
And this brings us to a term I keep seeing everywhere, the Reichstag moment.
Yeah.
I've seen conservative commentators use this a lot for this case. Can we unpack that? What does an arson in 1930s Germany have to do with Utah in 2026?
This is critical to understanding the skepticism. The Reichstag fire was an arson attack on the German parliament building in 1933. The Nazis blamed the communists for it, and they used that event as a pretext to suspend civil liberties, arrest their political opponents, and basically solidify their power.
So they created a crisis, or at least exploited one, to crush the opposition.
Exactly. So when you hear conservatives today use that term, they're not just saying this is a setup. They're expressing a deep fear that the assassination of Charlie Kirk is a false flag, a staged or manipulated event designed to paint the entire right as dangerous and to justify a massive government crackdown.
So when they see a perfect confession text that checks every single box, motive, weapon, lone wolf, they don't see good police work.
You see a script written to wrap this up neatly so the government can say, look, we caught the radical, now let's pass some new laws.
They believe the narrative was constructed before the crime even happened.
That's the suspicion. But then we have the doppelganger detail, and this might be the strangest part of the whole story.
It is truly bizarre.
So reports from the Indian Express mention Robinson's activity on Discord. Apparently, right after the shooting, Robinson logs on. His friends are messaging him saying, hey, the suspect photo looks just like you.
And Robinson doesn't say, yeah, it's me.
No. He claims he was his doppelganger, his double. He reportedly told friends that his double pulled the trigger specifically to frame him.
And the chat logs show his friends were joking about framing him to collect the $100,000 reward.
And he played along, joking about getting a cut of the reward money for his own capture, all while the police are closing in on him.
It just speaks to a profound detachment from reality.
It does. We have sources describing him as delusional, totally fueled by isolation. It connects back to that gamer brain theory, that the line between the digital world where you can respawn and roleplay and the real world where people die had just completely blurred for him.
It's chilling. You have this cold-blooded sniper taking a 160-yard shot, and then minutes later, he's a confused gamer on Discord making jokes about his doppelganger.
It creates a profile of someone who is deeply unstable. But, it also fuels the conspiracy theories. Because if he's that detached, could he have been manipulated? Could he be a patsy who didn't even realize what he was doing until it was all over?
Okay, we've covered the linguistic quirks, the cultural typos, the historical parallels, the psychological delusion. But we have to ground this in reality. Because we aren't just telling stories here, this is a legal case. If those texts are fake, if the FBI actually sat down and typed them, is that even possible?
This is the part that conspiracy theories often ignore. Digital forensics is incredibly, incredibly hard to fake.
Walk me through that. Because I can fake a text screenshot in Photoshop in like 5 minutes. Anyone can.
You can fake an image, sure, but you can't easily fake the metadata. When you send a text, it's not just on your phone. It hits a cell tower. It logs on the carrier's server, AT&T, Verizon, whoever. It often backs up to the cloud instantly.
So for the FBI to fake this, they wouldn't just need to type it on Robinson's phone. They would need to hack the cell carrier's database and insert the records there too.
Right, and they'd have to do it for both phones, Robinson's and his roommates. And they'd have to make sure the timestamps matched the GPS data of where those phones physically were at that exact second.
That is a lot of moving parts to coordinate.
It's an immense conspiracy to pull off in the span of a few hours before the arrest. Defense attorneys will subpoena those carrier logs. If the timestamp on the phone doesn't match the timestamp at Verizon, The whole case just explodes. It would be the biggest scandal in DOJ history.
So Occam's razor, the simplest explanation, suggests what?
The simplest explanation is probably the right one. You have a radicalized, socially isolated young man. He did something terrible. And then, as the adrenaline crashed, he panicked.
And he texted the only person he trusted.
He texted his roommate, and he did it in the awkward, stilted, tactical way he learned from thousands of hours of video games. He wasn't a Fed. He was just a weird, panicked 22-year-old using cop speak because he grew up watching police procedurals and playing tactical shooters.
And he got the meme wrong because he was stressed, or maybe he just made a typo.
Maybe, but that's the tragedy here, isn't it? We have a dead public figure in Charlie Kirk. We have a young man facing the death penalty.
And a roommate, Lance Twiggs, whose life is effectively over, hiding out somewhere. All this lost potential.
And we have a public that cannot agree on what is real.
That's the scariest part to me. We're all looking at the same text, the same images, and seeing two completely different realities. One side sees a slam dunk confession, the other sees a government conspiracy.
It just highlights the real danger of isolation. Robinson and Twiggs were both described as lost potential. Smart kids, high GPAs, musical talent, all of it lost to the screen, to radicalization, to an echo chamber that eventually spilled out into horrific, real-world violence.
It really makes you think, if a murderer confesses in a text message but uses the wrong emoji, does that make him innocent?
Or does it just prove that in 2026, we're so suspicious of the narrative that we'll analyze a meme before we accept the reality of a smoking gun?
That is a question everyone needs to answer for themselves.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.